Hello everyone, welcome to the basic training kitchen. Today we are going to make a very simple continental menu. As it has been informed to you in the previous classes, the menus as we proceed become a bit difficult. The complexity of the dishes that we put in the menu increases. Previously you have seen two simple menus with 3 dishes in each. Today we are starting off with a new menu which has 4 dishes in it. Okay. The menu is mushroom soup, we are making an omelette and 2 vegetable accompaniments in the form of glazed carrots and baked cheese potatoes. Now mushroom soup is a soup which comes under the category of thick puree soups. This has already been covered in your theory component. The mushroom soup, the main ingredient as the name suggests, has to be mushroom. And in a puree soup, one of the thickening agents, rather one of the components that comes in the soup is the thickening agent or provides the thickening to the soup. We are going to flavor this soup with thyme. So this will be a mushroom flavored soup with a very subtle flavor of thyme in it. The main course, although I will not call it as a main course, is an omelette, because omelette is a dish which is usually served in the breakfast section of the buffet. But as part of your syllabus, omelettes or egg cookery is considered to be the part of the main course. That is why we have included omelette in this particular menu. We will be using 2 eggs for making an omelette, because per portion we require 2 eggs. The accompaniment, as I said earlier, is glazed carrots, a very simple dish. The carrots will be cooked just until they are done, and there is a French word for it, the term that is al dente, that is firm to the bite. The carrots will be glazed using a mixture of butter and sugar, so they will be slightly sweet. And lastly, we are making baked cheese potatoes. The potatoes will be parboiled first, then we are going to put some grated cheese on top of it, glaze it with some butter, and then finish off the final cooking under a salamander. So that is your menu for today. The first thing that we do after getting the ingredient tray to our table is division of the ingredients. We are dividing the ingredients for the mushroom soup over here right now. We have taken button mushrooms, which are the most easily and readily available mushrooms variety in India. Along with that, I have taken onion and some garlic. As I said initially, the soup will be flavored using some thyme, because the soup needs to have a subtle flavor of thyme in it. The second dish that we are going to make today is omelettes. So for making the omelettes, we will be using 4 eggs. 2 eggs per portion, so we are cooking for 2 portions. Later, we will be making glazed carrots, so carrots along with parsley, and finally we are using potatoes and cheese for the baked cheese potatoes. We will proceed with the menu now. The first dish that you are going to make today is baked cheese potatoes. I have washed the potatoes, and then whatever ingredients you don't need to go on the bottom shelf of the table, so they do not hamper you while you are working in the kitchen or on your table. The potatoes have been washed, and now we are going to peel the potatoes using a peeler. While you are peeling the potatoes, make sure that the entire peel has been removed out. Also, I have kept a pot of cold water on the side, so that immediately after peeling, the potatoes can go directly in the cold water. This prevents the oxidation of the potatoes, which will lead them into browning. We don't want the potatoes to turn brown. That is why we are putting them in a pot of cold water immediately after boiling. While peeling the potatoes, you need to be absolutely sure that there are no black or brown spots left behind on the surface of the potato, because that does not give a good appearance to the end product. We are going to repeat the procedure with the second potato as well. We are peeling it thoroughly and then putting it back in a pot of cold water. Now we are going to cut the potatoes lengthwise in half. Both the potatoes will be cut lengthwise in half, because they look good on the plate that way. Now we are going to give gashes all over the surface of the potatoes. We'll give one straight cut and one cut at an angle, so that this much piece of potato comes out. The gashes have to be given all over the surface of the potatoes, and preferably the gashes should be kept at uniform intervals. The idea over here is that once the potatoes are cooked and you put the grated cheese over it, the grated cheese will melt into these crevices and the potato will get the flavor of the cheese. The gashes have to be done thoroughly. If there is any piece of potato left behind in the gash, it has to be removed out. This is how the potato will look after the gashes have been given onto the surface. The same process has to be repeated with all the potatoes. The trimmings today will go in the dustbin. We are not going to need them. Any other time you can put them in mashed potato preparations. That is how you will proceed with the potatoes. The trimmings, as I said, will have to be discarded out. Keep the work area clean. Now the potatoes will be transferred into a new pot of water, because this pot of water has turned cloudy, and we are going to cook the potatoes in this pot of water. Before we cook the potatoes, we will season the water with salt, and then we will transfer the vessel onto a flame and we are going to parboil the potatoes. That is, we are going to half cook them. Okay, after the potatoes, we are going to start off with the glazed carrots. The carrots will be washed and then peeled. The parsley, we don't need it right now, so we are keeping it on the bottom shelf of the table. Bring the kachra bowl to the center of the table, and using a peeler, we are going to peel the carrot properly. Here also, we are going to make sure that no peel is left behind while peeling the carrots. We here are using English carrots, which are orange in color. These carrots are usually slightly lesser sweet as compared to the Indian red carrots. That is why, if you guys remember, in the briefing, I told you that we'll be adding little bit of sugar to the carrots as a finishing technique. Both the carrots have to be peeled thoroughly, and then we'll trim off the top and the bottom of the carrots. Then what we are going to do is, we are going to give grooves on the surface of the carrot. This is going to be achieved by means of a tool which is called a zester. A zester traditionally is used to remove the rind or the outer peel of citrus fruits. Over here, we are just moving the edges of this zester over the surface of the carrot so that you get grooves on the surface of the carrot. We are doing this solely for the purpose of enhancing the appearance of the final dish. If you do not have a zester with you, you can use a plain peeler which has grooved edges. You can pass on the grooves over the surface of the carrot and you get the same effect. Again, it is not compulsory to do this step. You can completely omit this step if you wish to do so. This is done only and only to enhance the appearance of the final dish. The trimmings over here have to be wasted, or if you choose so, you may add them to a stock or a sauce which is already on the flame. Now we are going to cut the carrots diagonally at a slant into cylindrical discs. We are going to cut them diagonally so that they look elongated. We are going to cut them into 2 to 3 mm thick cylindrical pieces. Make sure while cutting that each and every slice is of uniform thickness. If the carrot is not uniformly cut, what will happen is the thinner pieces of the carrot will get cooked faster as compared to the thicker pieces, and will end up with a carrot mash instead of glazed carrots. All the slices have to be of same shape. That is why as you move down the length of the carrot, the angle of the knife slightly changes, so that almost all of them are of the same length. The trimmings from the carrot at this point will not be used in this dish.
but they can be a part of a stock or a soup which is already on the flame. You will repeat the same process with the second carrot as well. The trimmings have to be reused somewhere else. Then we'll transfer the slices of the carrot into a saucepan or any vessel, making sure that you get a uniformly thick layer at the base of the vessel. The carrot should form a single layer at the base of the vessel. This ensures that the carrots cook evenly. And then we'll be adding in water just enough to cover the carrots. We are adding approximately 50 to 75 ml of water to the amount of carrots that we had. Then for seasoning, we'll be adding just a pinch of salt, not too much, just a pinch of salt. This ensures that the carrots are seasoned properly. Then we will mix the salt with the water with the means of a spatula or any spoon that you have at your disposal, and this will be transferred onto the flame. The idea is by the time the carrots are cooked, all the water will be evaporated. Look at the amount of water. It is just enough to cover the carrots. Now the potatoes have been parboiled and we are removing them out onto a plate. Okay. Make sure that you do not refresh the potatoes, that is, put them under a flow of cold water. If you do that, the potatoes will absorb a lot of water. Here you can easily see the grooves that were made on the potato, and when you put cheese inside, the cheese will melt, and that is what you will end up with. The carrots are being boiled over here. Okay, now we are going to start off with the mushroom soup, and the first step of that is cleaning the mushrooms. As you can notice, the mushrooms over here have a lot of dirt, soil all over them. So we need to get rid of all the dirt and soil. But we cannot just directly wash the mushrooms underwater. Why? Because mushrooms are generally 90% moisture by weight. So if I wash them, what will happen is you will be adding on more water to the mushrooms. So we have a technique where we clean the mushrooms using refined flour, which is maida. We add the mushrooms to the vessel and we add maida, refined flour to it, and we toss the mushrooms in the refined flour mixture so that the mushrooms get completely coated with the refined flour. Once the mushrooms are coated with the refined flour, then we gently scrub the mushrooms using our fingers to get rid of all the dirt and the soil. Then you may, if you choose so, wash the mushrooms under running water, or you can use these cleaned mushrooms directly as they are. We over here have washed the mushrooms under running water because right now, after the mushrooms have been scrubbed with refined flour, all the water, all the dirt has already been removed. So the amount of time that the mushrooms spend in water is less. Now we have taken the mushrooms and we are slicing the mushrooms. Here we can chop or slice the mushrooms any which way you want because we are, as it is, going to puree the soup later on. Before chopping the mushrooms, I removed out a few good looking mushrooms and kept them aside because they will be used for garnishing. All the mushrooms have been sliced and kept aside. And as it was informed to you in previous classes, you have to keep all your pre-preps ready. That is, the pre-preparations for the dish should be ready. For this soup, I have kept my onions chopped, my garlic chopped, and butter ready onto a plate so that I can start with the soup. A few mushrooms I had removed out initially, the good looking ones, because I want to use them as garnish for our soup. Now you have to be specially careful while cutting these mushrooms because these mushrooms are going to be seen by the customer, whereas the ones in the soup are going to be pureed. So you need to be specially careful. Choose the pieces from the center part of the mushroom because that is where you will get the best structure out of the mushroom. Always cut more than you need because we are not sure of the internal structure of the mushrooms. Some mushrooms might look good from the outside, but from the interior they might be completely hollow. So it's always advisable to cut more than what you actually need. Out of the pieces, you select the best and the trimmings can go back into the puree. All the pieces which are not good looking can be added back to the mushroom mixture. The good looking pieces of the mushrooms will be kept aside and we'll cook them later on. Now we'll start off with the making of the soup. Keep a duster ready at your hand to hold on to the vessel. I've already said in the morning that we make the soup with butter, but butter usually has a very low smoke point. If we add butter directly into the pan, there are chances of butter burning or more. So we always use butter in combination with oil. So we'll first add the oil to the vessel, and then after the oil goes in, we'll add in the butter. You will melt the butter in the pan. Once the butter has melted, then we will proceed by adding the onion and the garlic to the pan. Garlic goes very well with mushroom. The flavor complements the flavor of mushroom. So we have added garlic to it, and we'll be adding the chopped onions. We are going to saute the onion and garlic until they turn translucent. The objective over here is not to brown the onions, because browning will affect the color of the soup. That is why we are just sweating them out. If you feel that the flame is too high, you can reduce the flame slightly and continue with the cooking process. The onions just have to turn translucent. That is what is expected. Do not brown them. Now, the onions have turned translucent, and we will add in the main ingredient of the soup, which is your mushroom, and the flavoring in the form of thyme. We are adding the thyme sprigs as it is. We are not separating the leaves from the thyme, and we'll add the mushrooms to the soup. All the mushrooms have to go inside the pot, and you can cook this on a high flame. Now, mushrooms in general, as I told initially, have 90% by weight moisture. So when you start cooking the mushrooms, a lot of water starts oozing out of them. We are going to cook the mushrooms until all the water from the mushroom evaporates completely. This will take a good 5 to 6 minutes to happen. You have to be patient while doing this. You cannot just leave the mushrooms on the flame and do something else, because if you do so, the chances of the mushrooms burning increase. So you have to continuously stir the mushrooms, stir the mixture around. This is the water which I was talking about. A lot of water has leached out of the mushrooms, and we will cook the mushrooms until all this water has been evaporated. As I said, it will take a good 5 to 6 minutes for this to happen. The soup that we are making today, we are using button mushrooms in the soup. I told you that these are the most readily available mushrooms in the market, but you can use any type of mushroom for making this soup, whichever is available to you. You can use a combination of different mushrooms as well. 2 or 3 different mushrooms, porcini, bolete, can be used along with button mushrooms for the soup. As you can see now, all the water from the mushrooms has been evaporated. Now we are adding the thickening agent in this soup, which is your refined flour, more commonly known as maida. This refined flour also needs to be cooked completely. If it is not cooked, your soup will get a raw flavor from the uncooked refined flour. So you have to be careful while cooking it. Also, make sure that the flour does not stick to the base of the vessel and start burning. So you keep on moving the mushroom mixture around, and to ensure that the flour gets evenly cooked. It will take approximately a minute or so for the flour to be completely cooked. Now we will be adding the liquid component in the soup, and the liquid component over here is a combination of milk and water in the ratio 2:1, that is 2 parts of milk and 1 part of water. We are going to cook this mixture until the mushrooms are fully done and the mixture has thickened considerably. This will take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes on a medium flame. We have to initially at least keep on stirring the mixture around and in between as well, so that the flour in the mixture does not stick to the base and burn. We are starting off with the baked cheese potatoes. We are greasing the mold in which we are going to put the potatoes inside the oven or the salamander using a pastry brush. We are greasing the potato as well. We are applying melted butter on the potato so that they get a nice even brown coating on them after cooked. You will grease each and every potato with the butter. Now I can afford to keep the potatoes any which way I want in this particular dish, because this is not the presentation dish. I will place the grated cheese over the potatoes now. The idea is that by the time the cheese melts slowly, it will go and settle in the crevices that we have made inside or on the surface of the potato. You can keep the cheese on the top of the potato. Try not to spill the cheese onto the base of the vessel. The cheese needs to be only on the top surface of the potato. Do this job evenly, and then you will place the potatoes under a salamander. We will cook the potatoes until the cheese has melted out evenly and the potatoes have cooked properly. So now we are finishing off with the soup. The mushrooms have cooked properly, the mixture has thickened. This has been on the flame for more than 8 to 10 minutes. Now we will strain this mixture out. We will transfer this vessel onto the table using a duster, and we will separate the liquid from the solid using a soup strainer. Make sure that all the liquid gets separated out from the solids. A soup strainer is the best equipment tool for this purpose. Do not waste any of the mixture, so use a spatula to remove out any leftover pieces and leftover liquid in the vessel and pass it through the soup strainer. The liquid is very much flavorful because all the flavor of the mushrooms has gone into and leached into the liquid, so do not waste any of the liquid as well. Take out as much liquid from the solids, and then we are going to transfer these mushrooms onto a plate. After doing this, we are going to remove out the thyme sprigs that were present in the mushroom, which were added to the mushroom soup while boiling it. Now the thyme has to be discarded because if we grind the mushroom along with the thyme sprigs, the soup will get a very strong overpowering flavor of thyme in it. As I said initially, the soup has a very subtle flavor of thyme. The thyme should not overpower the mixture. So make sure that all the sprigs of the thyme are removed and discarded. And this is the reason why we added thyme sprigs as it is. We did not separate the leaves from the thyme, and we added the sprigs directly so that they could be removed out easily at the end of the cooking process. Once all the thyme has been removed out, we will allow the mixture to cool down. The reason why we separate the solid from the liquid is so that the soup mixture cools down faster. Once the mixture has cooled down, then we'll grind the solid mixture with little bit of the liquid, and then we'll combine the solid back with the liquid. So we are now starting off with the omelette. For making the omelette, we are using 2 eggs per portion. You crack open the eggs in a bowl. I have washed the eggs prior to cracking them so that all the impurities, if there were any, on the surface of the egg get washed off and they don't get transferred into the egg. Then we'll be seasoning the egg with salt, and we'll be flavoring the egg with white pepper powder. White pepper is optional. If you want, you can add it. If you don't want, you can omit it. We'll be adding a small cube of butter to enhance the flavor of the egg. Now we're going to beat the egg yolk and the egg white together. The objective of this beating is to combine the egg yolk and the egg white completely together. If this step is not done properly, your omelette will get streaks of white in between the yellow colored egg. So it's absolutely essential that this process be done properly. It will take a good minute and a half or so for the egg yolk and the egg white to combine properly. And a fork is one of the best tools that you can use for this particular purpose. We don't want to incorporate any air into the mixture over here. We don't want to trap any air into the mixture. We just want the egg yolk and the egg white to combine completely and properly. If you use a whisk or an egg beater, you might trap in extra air which is not required and desired. So combine the egg yolk and the egg white thoroughly and properly. Then once it has been done properly, we'll take the mixture to the gas range and we'll start with the making of the omelette. The most important equipment that you need for making an omelette is a good non-stick pan and preferably a silicone spatula. You can make an omelette in a cast iron pan as well, but the pan has to be properly seasoned. To make our lives easier, we use a non-stick pan. Even in the hotel industry, they use non-stick pans for making omelets. And these non-stick pans, which are used for making omelets, are used for making omelets solely. They are not used for doing anything else. We'll add in butter into the pan and we'll melt the butter in the pan. The flame has to be regulated while making an omelet. We don't want the omelet to turn brown in color. This is a proper, authentic French omelet. It will be slightly moist from the center and the surface will be yellow in color. Once the butter has melted, we'll again just combine the egg yolk and the egg white, and then we'll pour this egg mixture into the non-stick pan. We will move the egg mixture into the non-stick pan with the help of the spatula. We are trying to scramble the egg in the pan. But while doing so, we are being gentle so that the omelette forms a base, rather the egg settles on the base, or egg forms a layer on the base of the pan. We have to move around the solid part of the egg, which coagulates around the liquid part, so that all the liquid in the egg also gets coagulated. While doing so, you have to make sure that the omelette does not brown. So we can just lift off the set part of the egg and push the liquid part underneath it. It's essential to do this job properly to prevent the browning of the surface of the egg. If you feel that the flame is too high, you can reduce the flame. Once the sides of the omelette are set, we'll start with the folding. First fold, then the second fold, we make a V out of it. Then the third fold, wherein we make kind of a boat. And then we are going to make the fourth fold, which will give us the ideal crescent shape of a French omelette. The liquid that is left over from the egg will be used to seal the edges of the omelette. Take it to the corner and try to seal the omelette properly. Once that is done, we will switch off the gas and immediately transfer the omelette onto a half plate. Now we are going to grill the mushrooms for the garnishing of your soup. We are using a new non-stick pan for this, and in the non-stick pan we will be adding a little bit of oil, swirl the oil around, and then once the oil heats up, we will be placing the mushrooms gently into the non-stick pan. We want the mushrooms to grill properly, evenly, and get an even golden brown color on the surface. It's highly important that the mushrooms retain their shape and their appearance, because these are going to be seen by the customer. You can keep the flame on a medium so that the mushrooms cook evenly. The mushrooms have to be handled gently over here. That is why you see me using a tablespoon instead of a spatula. Once the mushrooms have grilled from one side, then we will flip them over so that they get the even golden brown color from the second side as well. The best of the slices of the mushrooms were chosen for the garnishing, and as you can see over here, the mushrooms have got a nice golden color on one side, and I have flipped them on to the second side so that the second side also gets the even golden brown color. Once the mushroom has evenly browned from both the sides, we will switch off the gas and transfer the mushrooms onto a separate plate. These will be used later on for garnishing your soup. Keep them separately aside. Now we'll finish off the soup. We have ground the mushroom into a puree, and we will be combining the mushroom puree with the leftover liquid which was from the boiling of the mushrooms. Make sure that you use all the puree. Do not waste any of the puree, and a spatula is the best tool that you can use for this purpose, because the puree is highly concentrated with the flavor of mushrooms. If you waste any of it, we will be wasting the flavor of the mushrooms. So combine the puree with the leftover liquid from the cooking of the mushrooms, and as you can notice, the puree is very, very thick at this point. So we are going to adjust the consistency of the soup using water. You will add water to the mixture and combine the water with the mixture so that you get a homogeneous mass. You might have to add water in several batches to get or reach to the right consistency, the consistency of a thick soup. You can always add extra water if you need so, but it is very difficult to remove too much of water if you have added it initially itself. So it's advisable to add water in batches. As a matter of fact, any liquid component that you're adding to adjust the consistency of any soup has to be added in batches. That makes your life as a chef very, very easy. Instead of water, you may use milk or cream or even stock. Depending on which soup you're making, you can add any liquid component. So as I said, I'm adding water in batches over here to ensure that the soup reaches the right consistency. And I'm mixing the soup all the time to ensure that the water gets combined thoroughly with the puree. Now to give a final check of the consistency of the soup, I'll be using a round spoon or a ladle because that gives me a general idea of the thickness of the soup. I need some more water, so I've added some more water, and that is the consistency of a thick soup. Now we are going to season the soup. Okay, for seasoning, I'm using salt, and for flavoring, I'm using white pepper powder. If I add the pepper powder directly to the soup, the chances of pepper powder forming lumps in the soup increase. So I add water to the mixture of salt and pepper, make a slurry out of it, and then this slurry will be added directly to the mushroom soup. This ensures that the pepper does not form any lumps in the soup. Combine the seasoning and flavoring over here using the round spoon thoroughly so that the soup gets evenly seasoned, and then you should ideally taste the soup to check the seasoning. Once you are confirmed with the taste of the soup, then you will reheat the soup using a double boiler. The water has been brought to a boil, and then we place the bowl with the soup inside the boiling water. Now we are starting off with the glazed carrots. The glazed carrots have already been in the saucepan. We'll add some butter to the saucepan, and as I said initially, little bit of sugar to the carrots to give a nice glaze to the carrots. The glaze over here is going to come from the melting of the butter as well as the melting of the sugar. We'll keep it on a medium flame until the butter and the sugar both melt out properly. You have to be careful while doing this to make sure that the carrot pieces do not break while moving them around. This will take a minute or so until the sugar and the butter have completely dissolved in the pan due to the heat of the pan. Once they have dissolved and the carrots have got a nice glaze onto them, a nice coating onto them, we'll be adding the finely chopped parsley to it. The parsley was chopped, and then we had squeezed out all the water from the parsley through a duster, using a duster. We'll toss the carrots in the pan so that all the pieces of the carrot get completely covered in specks of green. The idea is you'll have an orange piece of carrot with specks of green all over it. Now is the time for presentation. As you can see, I am handling the cooked food right now with my bare hands. That is why I've started using gloves over here, and I'm plating the carrot using my hands directly. This is just one way in which you can place the carrots. The presentation is totally left up to you. I'm placing them diagonally, overlapping one on top of the other. Again, this is just one method of plating. You can choose any which way in you want to plate or present the food. This food is sufficient for one person. That is why you can see there are more carrots left behind in the saucepan. We always serve one portion of food in one plate. You always have to adhere to this basic principle of plating. One portion, one plate. That is what is expected from a properly trained chef. So the carrots have been plated. Next, we'll move on to our soup. The soup has reheated properly on the double boiler, which is evident from the fumes or water vapor which is emanating from the saucepan. You can see the water vapor clearly, I believe, in this soup bowl. I'm using a black colored soup bowl because it enhances the gray color of the soup over here. You always eat the food first with your eyes. The food is looking nice on the plate. It will obviously taste nice as well. Now, I'm going to garnish the soup with the grilled mushroom pieces. I am placing them gently over the surface of the soup. Now, because this is a thick soup, the mushroom pieces will remain on top of the soup. Okay. Ideally, they will not sink to the bottom of the soup, and we want to see the pieces of the mushroom on the surface so that the customer can be sure that this is a mushroom flavored soup. Once you have placed the mushrooms on the surface, then we will garnish the soup with a swirl of fresh cream. And this is again just one way of presenting your soup. If you feel that there is something on the rim, as I have noticed over here, I have wiped the rim using a tissue paper or a kitchen towel. Now we are plating our baked cheese potatoes. The potatoes are cooked over here and the cheese has browned sufficiently. The cheese has gone and settled in the crevices of the potato. I am serving just 3 pieces of potato over here. If you want, you can serve all the 4. Make sure that the plate is clean, the presentation platter is clean, and then if you choose to, you can garnish the potatoes. Over here, after cleaning the plate, I am going to garnish the potatoes with some leftover parsley dust. The parsley dust which was used to garnish my flavor my carrots, I am using the same parsley dust to garnish this particular dish as well. Again, this is completely optional. You may or may not add this to your soup. And this is how you will present the food, and this is the menu for today. Thank you.